Systems of equations can be used to solve word problems, particularly those word problems that there are two unknown values instead of just one. Alejandro has a computer support business. He estimates the cost to run his business can be represented by y equals 48x plus 500, where x is the number of customers. He also estimates that the income can be represented by y equals 65x minus 145. How many customers will Alejandro need in order to break even? What will his profit be if he has 60 customers? So these equations are already given to you. We have two equations. We have one equation that represents the cost to run his business, and that equation is y equals 48x plus 500 from right here. And then there's a income that he earns from that equation, y equals 65x minus 145. Notice that it says that x is the number of customers. That's what x represents, and y represents the cost. So we have a system of equations, and they're both solved for y, so I think the best way to solve this system would be to use the substitution method. And since they are both solved for y, we can simply go from the blue equation, and since y equals 65x minus 145, we can replace the y in the red equation with 65x minus 145. And then the rest of the red equation. And we solve for x. So we can solve that for x by subtracting 48x from both sides. It would be 48x. You can read that. So that gives us 17x minus 145 equals 500. Then add 145 to both sides. So 17x equals 645. And then divide by 17. And we get x equal to about 37.94. This is a little tricky part because we didn't do anything incorrect on this one, but we can't have 0.94 of a customer. So in order to represent a whole number of customers, we need to round that up to 38. So 38 customers is what's going to be needed in order to break even. Sometimes rounding is not something you should do. Oftentimes, if you get a decimal answer, you may have made a mistake because you shouldn't get decimal answers when dealing with things that require whole numbers, but this is not one of those cases. So that's the first part, is that we need 38 customers to break even. There is a second part of the question. The second part is, what will his profit be if he has 60 customers? So profit is found by taking the income and subtracting the cost to run the business. So remember, the income was the blue equation. So if we have 60 customers, to figure out what his income would be, we would take 65 times the 60, accidentally erased part of the 65 there, minus 145. And 65 times 60 minus 145 is 3,755. So he has $3,755 worth of income if he has 60 customers. And then we can subtract from that the cost of having 60 customers. And remember, the red was the cost function. So that would be 48 times 60 plus 500. And when you take 48 times 60 plus 500, you get 3380. And then to figure out what the profit is, you would subtract those two, and you would have a $375 profit. So for that part of the equation, or the problem, we don't actually solve a system using substitution or elimination. It's a different type of question. Next question is modeling. And at the right, we can see we have a couple of companies that offer digital photos. One of them charges 15 cents per photo for and plus $2.70 shipping, and the local store charges 25 cents a photo. Write an equation that represents the cost of printing digital photos at each lab. So what are the unknowns here? The unknowns are the number of photos you're going to be purchasing. So I'm going to let P equal the number of photos. And the other unknown is the total cost for purchasing the unknown number of photos. So I'm going to let C represent the cost. So for the online store, the total cost would be found by taking 15 cents times the number of photos and then adding $2.70. So cost would be 15 cents times P, that's the number of photos, plus $2.70. And then for the local store, the cost would be just 25 cents times the number of photos. So that would be 25 cents times P, and there's your system. Just like the last example, I think this would be best to solve using the substitution method. So I'm going, since they're both solved for C, I'm going to replace the C in the red equation with 0.25p. So I would have 0.25p equals 0.15p plus $2.70. And then I would subtract 0.15p from both sides to get the p's on the same side. So that would be 0.10p equals 270. Divide by the 0.10. So I would get p equals 27. So what does that mean? Well, that means that at 27 photos, it wouldn't matter how many, which photo company you use. They would both charge the same amount. What would that cost be? So let's go to the blue equation and replace the P with 27. And we would get a cost of $6.75. So again, that doesn't matter which lab you would use, whether you use the online store or the local store. At 27 photos, they both charge the same amount, $6.75. So that's actually part B, the answer to the question. And then part C is, when is it best to order prints online and when is it best to use the local store? 27 is the break-even point. That's when it doesn't matter which company you use. But if you're ordering less than 27 photos, you're going to want to use the local store. Because less than 27 photos, there's not going to be a shipping charge. For more than 27 photos, you're going to want to use the online store because it's going to take you ordering at least 27 photos in order to take full advantage of the shipping costs.